The rise of Julius Caesar resembles nothing so much in Montesquieu's telling as the rape of Lucretia. The rape of Lucretia was, for Montesquieu, merely the pretext or the occasion for the overthrow of Rome's early monarchy. Similarly, Julius Caesar is merely the occasion or the pretext for the overthrow of Rome's republic. As Montesquieu writes near the beginning of chapter 11, since the republic necessarily had to perish, it was only a question of who, how, or by whom it was to be overthrown. Again, near the end of chapter 11, Montesquieu makes a similar statement and a seemingly more radical one. Finally, he writes, the republic was crushed, and we must not blame it on the ambition of certain individuals. We must blame it on man, a being whose greed for power keeps increasing the more he has of it, and who desires all only because he already possesses much. If Caesar and Pompey had thought like Cato, others would have thought like Caesar and Pompey, and the republic, destined to perish, would have been dragged to the precipice by another hand. Yet it was Julius Caesar who was the more perfect reflection of the general spirit of the laws at that time, and he was the most fit vehicle for the new Rome. Consider the people who could potentially have ruled Rome at that time. Cato was far too strict and republican. Cicero lacked the necessary virtues and public spiritedness. Pompey, about whom Montesquieu dilates for quite a while in chapter 11, was too attached to the old order and too desirous of its approval. Julius Caesar, on the other hand, was the living embodiment of that late Rome. He had all the conquering military virtue that identified the Roman tradition. But he also sensed the weakness and death of the Roman republican tradition. So he knew it was time for a new order. He sensed it, even if he was assassinated precisely because he sensed it. It was his assassins, people acting on behalf of the old order, who were the people who grossly misjudged the times and what they demanded. All the judgments that Montesquieu makes about the famous actions around Caesar's assassination, especially those that he relates in chapter 12 on the condition of Rome after Caesar's death, are meant to show what was then possible given the changing nature of that people. The causes that destroyed the republic still remained even though Caesar was dead. That is how Montesquieu begins that chapter 12. The excellence of that chapter is to put the famous events around the death of Caesar and what happened afterward into the context of what was possible at that time given the changing nature of the people. And this brings us to one of the most amazing analyses of this entire book. Rome presents an amazing political spectacle. Revolutions have come and gone in world histories. Democracies have been overthrown by oligarchies, or overthrow oligarchies or monarchies. Rome, however, had such an overthrow, and at the same time it had a fundamental change in its political form, from a city to an empire. It went from a republic to an empire and from a city to an empire. And Julius Caesar is the occasion of that. Now, why did it happen? The loss of political liberty follows from the decline of that equality and that decline of honor that constituted part of Rome's old virtue. The republican institutions gave way to a new kind of institution, And that was an institution centered on one man. It was the political phenomenon that comes to be known as Caesarism. Does the history of Rome, which began in monarchy and which is famous for its republican institutions, end in a form of despotism? It seems so. And that despotism lasts for half a millennium. Now, the genuine founder of this new political order, this Caesarism, is Caesar Augustus, about whom Montesquieu writes chapter 13, entitled Augustus. Republican government means some chaos. If the people can be made weary of chaos and learn the inconveniences of republican government, they can come to love order more than anything. And then they are willing to give themselves over to one-man rule. And this is especially possible after civil wars. After a series of civil wars, Octavius, or Caesar Augustus as he came to be known, established power. Montesquieu writes this: Augustus, this is the name flattery gave Octavius, established order, that is, a durable servitude. For in a free state in which sovereignty has just been usurped, whatever can establish the unlimited authority of one man is called good order, and whatever can maintain the honest liberty of the subjects is called commotion, dissension, or bad government. The citizens of Rome were slaves at the bottom of their souls. The people were corrupted with money and distracted with games. The people were relieved of the problems of ruling and could lose themselves in this gentle servitude. The emperor provided internal peace and grain, and the people experienced the blessings of one-man government. Augustus kept up the appearance of the republic. The Senate could continue meeting, and he styled himself only the first citizen. It was called the Principate. But that appearance belied its monarchical character, and the people of Rome were no longer so spirited that they wanted anything but servitude. As Montesquieu writes, Augustus, a scheming tyrant, conducted them, that is, the Romans, gently to servitude. It was not a form of government that encouraged the Romans to achieve their old strength, their old spirit, their old honor, their old poverty, their old equality, or their old virtue. It was a form of government that could operate, in fact, in the absence of all those things. And in fact, it required the absence of all those things. With more and more people being admitted into Roman citizenship, the only thing that united the people of Rome was submission to that emperor. Diversity promoted the emperor's strength. So Rome survived, but as a cross between a run-of-the-mill despotism and the greatest empire on earth. It had changed and adapted in a way that might indeed repeat itself sometime in the human future. Who knows? The book continues after this treatment of Augustus because Rome continued, and there are more political phenomenon that Montesquieu must explain, including, first, why, despite the Roman Empire's weakness and corruption, it lasted so stinking long. And second, what finally brought it down?